Okay, so the latest Tottenham Hotspur transfer news. Still lots going on at Spurs and lots to come out over the next week or 2 weeks of the transfer window. We're going to see what's happening with Lo Celso and Sessegnon, Ryan Sessegnon at Fulham, and also do a quick Spurs update of Vincent Janssen, Toby Alderweireld and Danny Rose. So we'll start with Vincent Janssen, Dutch 25-year-old striker. Didn't really work out for him at Tottenham, and it's been confirmed he's joining Mexican side CF Monterrey. Now, we think the fee's about £8 million, and I think that's a good deal for Spurs. Like I say, he's only scored 6 goals while he's been here, signed in 2016. I think Spurs, from memory, paid about 19-20 million pounds for him. And, you know, like I say, 6 goals, one that didn't quite work out. It's hard for any player and any club in the transfer market to make sure they get those signings right, because if they're not right, if they're not a right fit for the player and a right fit for the club, then it's just a total waste of money and time for everybody. And, you know, Vincent Janssen's lost 2 or 3 years out of his career, really. And Tottenham Hotspur didn't really get the guy they thought they were getting. When they signed him, he was Dutch Player of the Year, top scorer in the Dutch League, 22 years old. You know, like a lot of these transfer targets now they're looking at that possibly are going for 40, 50, 60, 70 million pounds. And you can see that's a good example of why it's really important to make sure they get these transfers right in this transfer window. Now, he was loaned out to Fenerbahce, a Turkish side, the year before, 17-18 season, and I think he only scored 4 goals in 16 games. Last season he was injured, so it's probably the best bit of business for everybody. So that's Vincent Janssen. Toby Alderweireld, I like this guy, good experienced central defender. I thought he had a good season last year. He's a very, what I call a positive centre-half. Does all his defending quite quietly, and he gets a ball and he's looking to play forward all the time, and that's the sort of centre-half I like. Does the basic things easily, simply, gets rid of the ball going forward. So I like him. Obviously, his 25 million release clause is due up on Friday. So if it goes beyond Friday, you can bet your bottom dollar that Levy will be rubbing his hands together and he'll double that to 40, 50 million pounds probably. So it's looking like at the moment. Now, it was nice to see him captained. I think I said in my last video, it was nice to see him captained as the pre-season friendly and starting in the 11. And, you know, he sort of came out publicly, and it's the sort of player I like, that came out and said, look, I like Pochettino. It was nice for him to make me captain. My focus is Tottenham. My focus is on, you know, preparing in the pre-season and preparing for next year. And that's just what you want to hear from a player that's got all these transfer rumours around him. Now, that doesn't stop him being sold. Like I say, this video is Wednesday morning, and, you know, that release clause of 25 million Friday, but at the moment that one is looking like Toby Alderweireld is more likely to stay at Spurs. Okay, so on to Danny Rose next, 29-year-old left back, not on the pre-season tour. I like Danny Rose. I think he's a superb left back. Wears his heart on his sleeve. 100% effort. You really feel like he does play the game with passion, but I think reading between the lines, there's been a few outbursts, and, you know, the two parties don't quite see eye to eye, and it's time for him to move on. Juventus and PSG are showing interest, and you know, Juventus were thought to be leading the hunt for him, but reports now are coming out that PSG are more likely to take him. Looking around about 20 million. And, you know, I think that would be a good move for Danny Rose, a good move for PSG, and probably at 29 years old, probably not a bad bit of business for Spurs. If he's going to go 20 million out to PSG, probably sounds a good deal. Now, it was reported back in January by the Sun that PSG actually made a bid for him then, and that was rejected. So it does seem the obvious choice, and that looks like where he's likely to go. So that brings us nicely on to Ryan Sessegnon, who's you know, widely touted as his replacement. And my feeling is this one's looking close. I think Fulham want 40 million, Spurs want to pay more like 25 million. And my feeling is there's two things holding it up. One, I think, is the Danny Rose situation. Ideally, Levy would like to see Danny Rose confirmed transfer out before he did it. But the other benefit to Levy is that Sessegnon's only got a year left on his contract. It runs till, I think, June 2020. So if he starts the season at Fulham, they then could lose him in January, or he could negotiate a free in January to a foreign club, or leave in the summer on a free to any club. So it makes sense for Fulham that if the player wants to go, he wants to move on, that he does go in this transfer window. And Levy never wants to miss an opportunity. We'll see that as a negotiating point, because the longer that drags on in the transfer window, the more Fulham will be worried about what they're going to get for this player. And, you know, he's a 19-year-old, lots of potential there. He's not the finished article, I know that. But I think he's somebody that Pochettino could develop into a really, really good left-back. And he can play higher up the field on the left-hand side, so he's got that versatility. But I think he needs to nail down a position at left-back. And if Danny Rose leaves, it's open for him there to make that spot his own for the next however many years, like I say, at 19. So that one's looking close. My one concern with that one is that there's rumours Liverpool are showing interest, and there's talk that they're looking for some cover for Andy Robertson. I can't see that one happening at Liverpool, though you can never say no, but I can't see it happening because as a 19-year-old player, he sort of played in the England youth ranks under 15 and 17 and then into under 19. He's a very promising left back, and at that age he does need to be playing regular first team Premiership football to fulfil his potential and his ambitions. And I think if he were to go to Liverpool, it'd be a great signing for them, but probably doesn't quite fit for the player in that he's going to play second fiddle to Andy Robertson. So I think Spurs is the ideal place for him. We don't know whether that deal's going to happen this week. Everything's pointing towards it does. The price is the thing, but I think if Danny Rose was to get confirmed, I think we would see that deal happen pretty quickly afterwards. Last one, Lo Celso, what we're all waiting to happen. This is the player that they've earmarked to replace Eriksen. And it appears price is the problem. I don't think this deal is dependent on Eriksen at all. There's three scenarios with Eriksen. One is he leaves. Well, then they definitely need Lo Celso, and he's been, he is the obvious best fit as a replacement player. Second scenario is he signs a new contract, and he gets his 150, 200,000 pounds a week. He signs his new contract. What's the worst that happens there? Spurs have got two good players. They can rotate them. If they're both showing promise and there's a problem, well, it's a nice problem to have. You've got two players that are going to have terrific value, and if Levy needs to sell one on at that point, he's got great value. If he signs Eriksen and it doesn't quite work out, then Spurs have got one player nailed down for that position, and Eriksen will be sold, albeit at a smaller cost. And the third thing is he stays on a free, and then you definitely need that replacement, Lo Celso, in place. If he's the player that Pochettino has earmarked and Levy have earmarked, my view is getting him. Now, the talk in the press is that PSG have a 20% stake on any sale price. Now, I think Real Betis signed him for, I think it was 27 million pounds. So if Tottenham were to get him for 45 million, it's not great business for Real Betis. There's not much profit on what is a very promising young player. And there's also talk that his old club at Rosario have got a little claim on some of the money and also some form of bonus for the player. Now, I've tried to find out how much this is true and correct, but I can't find out what clauses there are in a contract and who gets what. But it looks like that is possibly the sticking point, and that is why Real Betis are wanting more like the 60-70 million. Again, my view is that he's a player they want, he's a player that's been earmarked. If you have to pay 60-65 million for him as opposed to 45-50 million, I think it's good business. If it goes wrong, you know, if it goes wrong at 50 million, 45 million, it's a bad deal. You know, get him in and you know, show some confidence in him and get him playing in a Tottenham shirt. Now, I reported on my last one that Nabil Fekir was close, and then Napoli came in at the last minute to try and nick him under Real Betis's noses as a replacement for Lo Celso. That's now a confirmed transfer. Nabil Fekir has gone to Real Betis as Lo Celso's replacement for 22 million. So that does put the pressure a little bit back on Real Betis that they've got his replacement in. They've paid 22 million pounds. They don't really need both. It's a nice problem to have again. Real Betis aren't a club that are in financial difficulties. There was talk that they had 100 million plus earmarked to spend in the transfer market, so they could afford to keep both. But I think they've signed Nabil Fekir knowing that Lo Celso will be moving, and he made it quite clear he wants to go to Tottenham. He wants to play for Pochettino. He's an Argentinian from the same area as Pochettino, so it all ties in. So Real Betis won't be under financial pressure to immediately sell Lo Celso, but the plan was that Fekir comes in, Celso goes out. That's now happened, so I think we're just arguing over the money on that one. If you can't get the deal done on that one, then they need to start looking at alternatives. And I've always said Donny van der Beek is probably I think the signing of the summer. Now, Tottenham may not see him as the ideal like-for-like replacement for Eriksen, but I think he's a superb player, and he does provide. The thing with Eriksen is he's got a history of providing goals and assists. Yes, people question his commitment and his attitude last year, but his record shows those goals and assists. Lo Celso is maturing into that. Lots of goals last year, coming in with the assist, and I think as a young lad he'll develop. Donny van der Beek is exactly the same. I think he's poised right at that level to really push on to become a world class attacking midfielder. So we'll see what happens with that. I suspect something will happen on Lo Celso after Sessegnon. I think Danny Rose will go first, Sessegnon will come in, Lo Celso after that. News on Eriksen, not a lot of news out there on him, so obviously he's not attracting the interest perhaps he thought he would. So we'll keep watching and see what happens. So that's full roundup of the transfer update. Just mention the Big Mouth Football Journal is out. I like to keep a journal of matches I watch. So I've got a record of who played, what the attendance was. I like to put the player ratings, keep stats of the match, and also put a room for any of my thoughts. And I've always used a football journal, and you'll see there's pages there when I can record every match. There's room for about over 60 matches in a season, which even if a team progressing right through in the Champions League is more than enough. I've only had a small number printed. If anybody wants to look at that, obviously if there is a higher demand, we'll get some more printed, but there's a link down in the description for anyone that wants to take a look at that. And that's about everything for today's transfer update. If you like the videos, like the channel, I'd appreciate any support you can give in liking and subscribe below. Appreciate all the support you give, and thank you once again for watching.